But then it goes all the way to formal. So we got this going, and you call it dapper casual.
There we go.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to set the stage just a little bit. I have been in the academic world with my job now for 5 years, and after being in the business world for a long time. One of the things I've noticed, which is a problem with other institutions, since we work a lot with other institutions, is the lack of people being able to get out of their silos, which is a real problem when you're trying to make programs work, and especially in innovation. And the University of Utah has really a special sauce that other places don't have. In fact, other institutions are coming to us to find out how we're doing what we're doing. And it's really due to some of the programs like you're going to be hearing about today in the GApp Lab and the Center for Medical Innovation. And what they put together with these programs like LaSonde and Center for Medical Innovation, it really creates an outstanding innovation ecosystem for students and faculty. And in fact, I just heard about a new ranking that we were in, where we were rated the #1 college for aspiring entrepreneurs by Lend.edu, which is a large national student loan company. And right behind us in that study were Iowa, Georgia Tech, University of Michigan, and UCLA, just to let you know what kind of company we're in. Monday night, we are going to be holding the 7th annual Medical Innovation Bench to Bedside competition at the state capitol from 6 to 9. And I encourage you to stop by if you have a free evening. It's just I think it's one of the most exciting things we've got going at the University of Utah. And I'm going to show just a brief video to kind of give you a sense of the excitement. But this is a situation where you have student teams. These are graduate student teams mostly, where you have a medical student, an engineering student, a law student, a business MBA student, and sometimes an arts student coming together to develop medical products. And I think there's about, 5 or so of these products that have come out of this competition in the revenue stream right now, which is amazing in 7 years when you talk about all the FDA approval they have to go through. So there's a little bit of information about it.
We are at the state capitol
at the Bench to Bedside competition, which brings together students who are from the health sciences, from the engineering school, from the business school, and even the law school.
We throw them into these interdisciplinary teams, and then we partner them with physicians as their key opinion leaders, and we get them an industry lead to serve as their mentor in the business space. They identify unmet medical needs, and then they pursue new, unique, and disruptive solutions that are meant to be cost-effective and to produce higher quality care than we have today.
The company we've established is Step Medical, and the name of our product is the UVAC, or Uterine Vacuum Assisted Contraction Device. The UVAC contracts the uterus naturally after labor to decrease the risk of postpartum hemorrhage. Bench to bedside means to us really device creation from very initial concept all the way through understanding the market, research, prototyping phases, understanding how to start a business, and business techniques to get this to market.
This is very different from other things that I've seen because they're really understanding the core need. What is the physical and clinical need that the patients need or the physicians need, and then basing their innovation and their designs based upon those specific needs. If we can, through this type of technology, come up with better ideas that will provide better health care at a lower price, that helps the patient, but also the caregiver, and especially if it creates new jobs for Utah, it's a win-win that we all should support.
I think if you walk around the student projects here tonight, you see remarkable entrepreneurship, you see creativity, you see passion, you see the willpower and the willingness to take an idea really through to execution.
+1 Baby is a wireless, non-contact respiratory monitor. It measures a child's breathing with no contact whatsoever with the body. The reason why having my own child makes this so important to me is that I had my son about 17 months ago, and you don't really know how much you love a child until you have them and you worry about them. You know, if we did have some success tonight, it would definitely help the development You need some funding to even do a crowdfunding campaign, to make a good video, to start your manufacturing, to get it out to the masses.
This is also a competition, besides being a 7-month-long development program for innovation. And tonight, our judges are going to make decisions that are going to allow us to award over $80,000 in milestone funding. This partnership to be able to do this has been created between the University of Utah and really our big benefactor, which is Zions Bank, who gives us the money every year to run this program.
So again, it's Monday night, 6 to 9, it's free, it's an open house. Stop by and meet some of these kids. And on the way down, you described them perfectly. I'm so inspired by them. Roger said they're freaking brilliant, these kids. So come and meet them. So the other who knew about the University of Utah is that we have the #1 rated video gaming design program in the nation. Roger Altizer co-founded that program at the U, and the program goes by the formal name Entertainment Arts and Engineering. He's also the director of digital medicine for the Center for Medical Innovation, the founding director of the GApp Lab, which develops therapeutic games and apps, and is a huge growth industry. He earned his PhD in communication at Utah and specializes in serious and medical games, as well as game design and development. His heart and his research focuses on the importance of play and how good design encourages it. He is an internationally recognized speaker in this area and has presented at many industry conferences. He's married to the beautiful Samantha, and will you please join me in welcoming Roger to our program.
All right, it is a pleasure to be with you here today. Let's go ahead and pull this thing up. Just as a reminder, in case you missed the dates, April 3rd from 6 to 9, this event really will blow your socks off. You'll meet some incredibly talented students and see some just tremendous medical innovations there. And the best part about it is you get to see young adults light up when they get gigantic checks, sort of like on a game show. I get the privilege of giving away one of these checks every year. And it's part of one of the big highlights of the year every year is giving away that check. So come out to the Capitol Rotunda on April 3rd. You will have a very good time. Before we get started, I want to thank you. Service organizations are amazing things and certainly played a big part in my life. When I was in high school, a short 2 or 3 years ago, I did a lot with the Rotary, actually. We had a lot of Rotary speech competitions. We got some small scholarships from those, and they helped us go to school. Was in the Key Club, and those service organizations make a difference in a high schooler's life. Sort of sets them on the path towards doing service as an adult. So thank you for all of that. And it sort of motivates some of the work that I do. So we're going to talk today about video games, which is kind of a strange topic when you talk about medicine, and games being good for you. I'm happy to answer questions about game addiction and violence and all that kind of stuff as well, but I want to sort of plant a seed about games being good for you. You may have seen a little bit of our work recently. We were on KSL. They were showing off some of the work that we've done over the years. And then we were in the DES News, and our students and their games and all the things they do, they make headlines. And they make headlines because they do incredible things. So one of the games that was listed in this DES News article, we were above the fold. We were quite happy about that. Is a fantastic virtual reality game for young adults with autism. And so when I saw the flyer for the symposium coming up, I was really excited because we're working on a tremendous game right now that helps young adults with autism learn to self-soothe using some of the things that we've learned from Temple Grandin and her research. We've applied it to virtual reality. It's a lot of fun. One of the other ones that made the paper as well was our police simulation trainer that one of our students came up with. So we had a student come up with a virtual reality game for police officers to play that teaches de-escalation skills. And it measures your heart rate, it measures your voice, and it measures how crinkled up your face is. And it says, what can you do to calm down and sort of de-escalate situations? So exciting stuff. As was mentioned, EAE is a very well-known institution. I have very sad news. We were #1 until 2 weeks ago. I haven't even had time to update the slides. And so we've slipped to #3, but USC took #1 from us. And you know, if you're going to get beat, you might as well get beat by an awesome school. So they've done great work for us. And that's a picture of all faculty. All right, so like I said, EAE is an organization on main campus that does a lot of games, right? It does, you know, the students go off and they do these fantastic games, And we've always sort of motivated the students with a question, which is, you can use good design to solve real problems. That's not just about entertainment. It's about tackling the kinds of things that really are difficult in life and making them easier for people through play. And we give that to entertainment things, right? So some of the students are interested in regular entertainment games, but even then we sort of say, what problem are you trying to solve with your entertainment video game, right? So here's an example. We have a student creating a game, and it's exactly what you think about when you think about a video game. It's a person running, they're gonna do some jumping, and they're gonna punch some things and collect some coins, right? So that sounds like a video game. But what this student was really interested in was e-waste. So he's controlling that game using that plastic guitar. Those guitars were really popular about 5 years ago, and there were over 25 million plastic guitars sitting under people's beds and in their closets across America. I owned so many at one time that I felt like a roadie for Fisher-Price. I mean, the things are just everywhere, right? And so he said, these things are already exist. There's all this plastic out there. Can we come up with new and innovative games that take advantage of that plastic? So when they want to make these things, we want them to have jobs when they graduate. So we push on them this idea of publishing. To date, our students have published over 35 commercial video games. You can get them on everywhere from Xbox to PlayStation to the iPhone and Steam, which is a platform for computers, and everywhere in between. So industry has been very kind to our students in helping them out. Some of the students have made good money off of it. We've had students, let's see, our biggest numbers to date, we had one student game get 20 million views on YouTube, which was a pretty big thing. One of them made about 60 grand that they all split. And then one of them recently got like 400,000 downloads. I don't think I saw 60 grand my entire college career, so I was pretty impressed with the stuff they do. But I'm not gonna talk about the entertainment stuff today. What I wanna talk about are medical games, serious games, and apps, and the kind of fun things they can do for us. I'm gonna start off with a really famous one, Snow World. So Snow World was developed up at the University of Washington at the Life Center, right? And if you look at it, it's a pretty simple video game. It's a virtual reality game. You put on the VR goggles and you throw snowballs at snowmen, and Paul Simon plays in the background, right? So it's a pretty good time. But what it's used for is pretty phenomenal. It's used to help burn victims request less opiates when they receive treatment. So for those of you who don't know, burns are extraordinarily difficult and painful to treat. They have to stretch your skin, a lot of scrubbing involved. And as a result, people tend to take a lot of pain medication when they do have their burns treated. This is Lieutenant Sam Brown. He was burned in Afghanistan, over 90% of his body. And he was one of the first people to experiment with this game. As a result of this game, he requests 90% less medication than he used to when receiving treatment. That's 90% less opiates, right? And so originally they thought a video would work. And so they would show people a video, and it worked to a limited extent. But for some reason, doing something while it happened, reduced pain just tremendously. And so I'm gonna show you another game that's in a similar vein. This is Remission. And Remission is one of the most studied video games ever made. It came out about a decade ago. It was intended for children fighting cancer. And the idea was, cancer is terrible. Cancer treatment is almost as terrible. It is, for those of you who've had a loved one go through it, is a painful process to go through for the person and for the family. And so this was a game that was going to educate children, or that was intended to educate children about the medication, why they're taking it, and help them be more compliant with doing these procedures, right, with getting chemo and things like that. So you flew through your bloodstream, they customized the video game so you were shooting cancer cells with whatever your treatment was, whether it was pills or chemo or whatever it was at the moment. And they found tremendous results. So children were far more compliant, they understood their disease, they felt less bad about going to the doctors, they were empowered in their fight against cancer through playing the game. They understood it and they felt like they could beat it. And that was important. It also did something wonderful for researchers. It gave us our first brain scans of anyone playing a video game. So the image on the left is your brain on games. And the image on your right is your brain on a video and or a book. Very similar. So if you'll notice on the left, the brain is just on fire, right? As compared to watching it. So this actual one, the actual material here is somebody playing the game that I just showed you versus somebody watching the game that I just showed you. But it doesn't matter what the video or book is, the brain scans are fairly similar. Now, some of this is cheating. I can put it up here for a fact that people go, oh my gosh, it's so much more lit up. Well, a lot of the yellow that you see is what we call free. You get that because of motor skills, right? Because you're using your eyes and your hands, parts of your brain are gonna light up anyway. What's really important is the blue bit, and then the bit to the right of that, that's that dark yellow and red right in the center. So we know that these areas of the brain are involved with motivation and with reward, right? And so what we know with games is really interesting is it almost doesn't matter what the game is. There's something about anticipation and seeing that anticipation realized that gets the brain really excited. So we think we're a really simple game, a game like, oh, I don't know, like Mario, right? Everyone knows the character Mario, he runs and he jumps on the mushrooms and all that silliness. So your brain says, I'd really like Mario to run to the right. And your thumb presses on that little controller and Mario runs to the right. And your brain goes, I did that, that happened, it's super exciting, right? It's not that dissimilar from our jobs. When we put a plan together, we say, all right, so I'm gonna try and get the people that I manage to fill out their reports on time, so we hit our quarterly earnings, and then you put together a plan to do it, and they do it, and the brain gets excited. But that takes time. With games, it's instantaneous, right? The minute you press that pad, the little guy runs around, the brain gets excited. This means we have a prime opportunity to teach people things and help them with that. Towards that end, we've had a lot of people up in health sciences and across the university collaborate on this. So Utah has been very bold in trying to put things together that make a difference in this area. The Center for Medical Innovation, which has been mentioned, they run a bench to bedside program. They're a major sponsor and one of the supporters of the GApp Lab. Our video game program, and of course our health sciences library, where the lab is actually located. They've all kind of come together to create a place where we fund graduate students. We fund about 35 graduate students every semester. They get full scholarships to make medical games and apps and other kinds of serious games and apps. I'm gonna show you some of the work that they do, and we'll talk about it real quick. I'm gonna turn off the sound because the music is just moderately awful on this video. Oh, very nice. All right, so the first thing you're gonna see is our ski chair, which is a chair that's designed for tetraplegics or quadriplegics. And we have a chair, we built the software for the chair that allows people to ski again using a sip and puff controller in their mouth, a straw, or a joystick. And then we created a video game version so they can play it in their homes and learn how to do it. So they play this game and then they hit alt, and they're able to ski pretty darn well. Same is true with the boat. So we have a boat that is now fully, you can actually even unfurl the sail now with your mouth. You don't need a person to do it. And then we created a game to train people how to do that as well. And we've had just phenomenal results with it. The people who use the game first are way better at it than the people who just try the device itself. Color Me Healthy is a really cool game. Doctors frequently don't have time with children. Children require more time because of the way they play and the way they describe their illnesses. And so it takes time to get information from a child. So this is an app that children can use to describe their ailments at their leisure. And then doctors get a report at the end that says, oh, they're suffering from headaches, or they're suffering from pain here, nausea, whatever it is the person wants to describe. We've got just a slew of these things. This video goes on for forever. We've done 40 projects over the last 3 or 4 years, so I won't make you watch the whole thing. So those are the kinds of things we do. Everything from helping the disabled learn to ski again, to helping doctors do their jobs more efficiently when working with children, and everything you can imagine in between. One of the things that is a little bit different for the kind of work we do is this project. So this was a medical research project. When you get out of the hospital now, they give you what's called discharge information. It's a large stack of papers, and it tells you what to do, how to take your medicine, when to do it, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of people don't bother to read them. A lot of people can't read them. And so what they've started to do is include more imagery, some visuals to spice it up a little bit and make it easier on people who don't speak English as their primary language. Well, here's the problem. Who can guess what that picture is? Chickenpox. Chickenpox, right? Totally, it's chickenpox. When we showed it to people who spoke Mandarin as their first language, their response was, well, what did that chicken do to that poor man? Because the word chicken isn't in the disease in Mandarin, right? It's actually called like crystal disease. It's got a totally different name to it. So the image only works if you're a native English speaker. The image for walk slowly is a stick figure person, looks very similar to that, with a turtle on a leash. And that's walk slowly, right? We showed it to Pacific Islanders here in Utah, and I'll never forget this one young man's response. He looked me straight in the eye and he said, man, only a white guy would take a turtle for a walk. Well, I'm writing it down. Right? Can you give me a little bit more? And he says, yeah, so in my culture, turtles aren't the symbol for slow, they're the symbol for longevity, for long life. It means something different. And so when I probed a little deeper, they hadn't grown up with Aesop's fables. They didn't grow up with the tortoise and the hare. And so it was problematic. So our solution to it was we made a game, a really original game called Pictionary. And we let people play Pictionary all over town and draw new medical images for us and tell us what would work really well with their culture and with their groups. So we do a lot of work that involves patients. Almost everything that we design, we bring in patients as designers. We don't just interview them and ask them questions, we ask them to come up with solutions as well. Now, we don't always use their solutions directly, we don't always make exactly what they tell us, but by getting them to solve the problem, we understand deeply what they think the problem is. And so it doesn't matter who it is, we bring in people of all ages and in all shapes and colors and sizes. It's pretty good work. And that's how we end up with the things that we do, where we end up with people who are disabled helping us design the things for them. Good stuff. On the other end of the spectrum, we're also interested in sort of making a difference in our community. So this was, Arches Health Insurance was one of the groups that opened up when the healthcare marketplace first started. Unfortunately, Arches folded because of the way that the shakeout worked with money with the healthcare marketplace. But originally, they sort of identified a problem, which was college students didn't understand the healthcare marketplace. They didn't understand that there was a tax penalty for not registering, and they didn't get why they needed insurance. So we said, all right, we can make something for you, but this is a notoriously hard group to reach, right? These are people without a lot of time who have their attention span sort of spread all over the place, especially if you're talking about freshmen, right? How do you reach out to freshmen? So they said, all right, we'll make a video game. So we talked to a bunch of freshman college students, talked to a bunch of people in insurance, and we came up with Arches Saves Your Bacon. And so what it is a game where you pick your activities, you choose whether or not you want insurance or not, and then you spin a wheel for every month. And after a few years, you see how much does life cost with and without insurance. What does it cost if you break your leg? What does it cost if you twist your ankle? Maybe you get lucky and none of those things happen, but eventually something happens to everybody. So it's like the old game show, Press Your Luck, right? And it worked out really well. And so they get to see with actual, so all of our data for this, we actually worked with medical researchers to get the real numbers for what these things cost. And then finally, we're working very hard with the hospital to create a space for these things to get tested by patients. So we're creating a room in the hospital so when you're bored, you can come down and try these things out and give us some advice about what you think medical games and apps should look like. All right, final thoughts. This stuff is interesting because it's about two major themes. The first is collaboration. We get a lot of work together with industry and students and healthcare to solve these big problems. Healthcare is very expensive, and people are trying to figure out ways of motivating people to live healthier and to solve their healthcare in interesting ways. Our pitch to them is that play is one of the big keys. The way that we approach healthcare is frequently like work, right? We say, we want you to do these 10 easy things, and each one of those 10 easy things has 10 easy steps. So you walk out of your doctor's appointment with a list of 100 things that you now need to do in your life, from taking a vitamin, to stretching every morning, to watching your sodium, to taking prescription medication. And it is complicated. Additionally, we've discovered something really interesting. Not everybody likes their jobs, and not everybody enjoys work. And it blew us away when we figured this out. And so we said, well, if people don't like work in general, why would they want to work in health? So can we make healthy playful? And so we sort of did these things where we studied when were people at their healthiest. And truth be told, it didn't matter if they were a child or an adult. It's when they were at play. Nobody likes running laps, but if you were doing sprints so that you could play tennis, that was a different story, right? Nobody likes stretching, really, but if you were stretching so you could play soccer, people did it voluntarily every day. It was no big deal. And so when you incorporate play into wellness and health, you get really good results. And so we're trying to ask ourselves, how can we do this in other ways to extend the way that we do this playfulness? And then also, we need to solve problems. So many of the things, it's one of the great things about Bench to Bedside, is so many of the ideas that come up, they're good ideas, but they don't bother to talk to patients enough, and they don't do good design practices, and so they end up sort of languishing on the bench. So teaching young adults good design processes are important to sort of solving the problems. And of course, without industry collaboration, this stuff goes nowhere, right? Great ideas that don't leave the university aren't that great of an idea. And so from video games to medical games and apps, we work really hard with students and industry partners to get them out the door. All right, I am happy to answer any questions you may have about anything in this domain. Thank you.
Great presentation. Thank you
sure.
very, very much. It's a fascinating approach. Before lunch, before you got up, Glenn and I were talking about challenges that people have with addiction.
Yeah.
And what I learned was that drugs make our brain fire in the pleasure areas far more often than anything else or most other things that we do. Your example of the burn patient or the research that was done showing that you lit up certain areas of the brain
Right.
fall right in line with that type of activity.
Right.
Has anybody at the U looked at creating a game for addiction?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So there are people who are looking into that with a very similar mechanism, just like the burn victim. We haven't done anything at the U, but there's a group at UW who's trying to answer this exact question. Can we make virtual reality games to help people with drug addictions, right? And it's interesting because, not to get too into it, but there's something called flow that really helps out. The idea is, if you can imagine, this is doing something, this is easy and this is difficult, right? So that's skill level, and this is challenge, easy and difficult. So for example, you might be good at playing chess, right? But if you played against a child, that would be too easy of a task. So you're good at playing chess, you want to play against a good chess player. Or tennis, you're good at tennis. If you're bad at tennis, you want to play against someone who's bad. If you play against someone who's too good, it's frustrating, right? If you can get those things worked out so that they're perfectly aligned, where your difficulty in a game matches the skill level required, you enter into a state that we call flow. And for runners, they'll call things like the zone, and they lose track of the pain, and they lose track of time. And the same is true of games. So either you've had personal experience with, or you've seen it on YouTube, of a kid getting really upset when you take a video game away from them, like unreasonably upset, right? It's because they're in that state. The state of flow is a tough transition, a tough place to transition into, and a tough place to transition out of. So if you can imagine, if you were playing the best golf game of your life, and you were on fire, and then someone just starts talking to you randomly, you'd be like, hey, you know, just give me a minute here, I'm in this thing, right? And the same is true of that. And so what we're arguing is, or what the people in UW are arguing, is that that sensation can be used to sort of taper people out of addictions, right? Whether they be drug or food or whatever the thing is that they're addicted to. So yeah, I think it's a really interesting question. We're not doing it here, but it's a very interesting question.
How does when you have a design that's going to go and make money, how does it decided how that's going to be split up? I assume the university gets some reimbursement for the cost.
So the question is, when we make something, how do we decide who gets what percentage of it, and does the university get a portion of it? So I don't like you saying it, but we worked really hard to make sure that the students get 100% of their IP. So the students get all of the rights to the things that they make. That's not true of me. As faculty, the university owns what I make, and I get a third of the royalties back on it, right? But for students, a lot of us have worked very hard to make sure that students own 100% of the IP that they have. They can opt into things. So the university might offer them legal or accounting or business services, and they can offer to give a percentage of that to the university. For the most part, we'll let the students figure it out. We give them advice, and some of the students say, let's split it evenly. Some of the students say, I only want to work a little bit, so I only want a small percentage. So it's like any business arrangement, really, in that sense. But for most of the student innovations, the students keep almost all of the rights. On occasion, we have a company and a couple other organizations that students can spin their work into the university and get more things after graduation that sort of accelerate their business opportunities. For the stuff faculty goes, it's all just a negotiation. Like anything.
We thank Dr. Altizer for coming. I think Greta and Linda